is familiar with our office is the IMS Associates. So we're doing life insurance, annuities, long-term care, disability income, and life settlements. We're headquartered here in Orange County, California. Founded in 1986. We are licensed in all 50 states and contract with over 40 of the industry's top carriers. Now, in terms of getting to the review here of our concierge services / large case design, the way I want to present this to you today is kind of on a bit-by-bit, process-by-process format as to a lot of the different things we can do for you on your larger cases. And we're going to break that down really into probably 5 segments that we'll review, and the first of that being the pre-application / needs and coverage review in coordination with pre-application underwriting and impaired risk assessment. So those 2 steps, may not necessarily always be in that order, but one of those first 2 are going to be how we're going to start reviewing these cases. From there, we'll take a look at the product, carrier, and underwriting presentations, all the way through to our white glove case management for larger cases, as well as presentations, costs, summaries, projections, etc., once we have our underwriting offers on the table. So I'll give you a little fair warning here. A lot of the stuff as we start will seem maybe a bit basic, but it's really every piece of the puzzle here that really paints a picture for you as to the time, energy, and resources we are able to apply to these larger cases to really make sure we can get deals done. So first off then is the pre-application needs and coverage. What we take a look at here then, this is after you've given us a phone call and we've decided, hey, we got a potential applicant here. Let's really take a look at what he has and what we can do moving forward. Now, at this point in time, you want to identify, what needs he has per personal insurance, any estate needs, and potentially any business insurance needs. So we'll take a look not just at current needs, but also future needs and try to coordinate those with what product would suit best. On current needs, fairly obvious, a lot of the same scenarios you may take a look at on a regular basis: income replacement, outstanding debt, business needs, etc. For future, a big part of what we want to emphasize on future needs, which sometimes I feel like agents miss the dot on, is estate protection, not just today but in the future, tax liabilities, debt repayment schedules. Where's their outstanding debt today? Are they planning on taking on a second residence? Are they planning on growing their business? At what rate has their business been growing? What are their future investment and retirement goals, and how can we coordinate that in total with what you're working with them on their insurance side of things, as well as any alternative products? So we'll also try to identify any cross-selling needs, whether it's for long-term care, annuity needs, whether that's for funding the policies via SPIA or future accumulation or income vehicles, and then also try to prioritize per the products we're looking at whether death benefit is really a priority and or cash accumulation. In addition to that, one thing we found when we're dealing with a lot of these higher net worth clients, and something to be aware of, that unless the client had won the lottery yesterday and given you a call then to get the insurance, they probably have some form of insurance. And what we found is most of these kind of clients not only have some form, they have multiple forms of insurance. So reviewing that existing coverage goes hand in hand with trying to identify the needs, because it's not just so much, hey, where are the other needs for the future and where do we stand today, but how can we build upon what you have, and either are there any gaps in the coverage that you currently have. So we'll take a look at total and first coverage, projected lengths of coverage, total premiums, cash values, internal rate of return reports on a single product as well as in portfolio overall, and also assist you in any of the documentation necessary to review these. Whether that's getting you service agenting request forms with the carrier so we can have access to the policy statements and the in-force illustrations, and then take a look once we've done that review on the total coverage, trying to identify gaps in the coverage where additional insurance might be needed, where we might be able to save costs, or were there any opportunities for replacements or, as I mentioned, additions. So what we're going to do here, and you'll see this here, we have an asterisk with C examples. Whenever you see that on a screen, it means we're going to pop out of the presentation just briefly to show you a few of the documents and resources we've accumulated for each one of these kind of deals. And so on the front end of it, what we're looking at here then are the pre-application needs and coverage review, and I want to show you some of those documents we work with. So let's take a look here. So first and foremost, we're taking a look at a life insurance fact finder. Now this is very important. I know this is one of the oldest tools in the bag and something that's been around forever, and I think because of that, sometimes it gets discounted, but fact finders, collecting this personal information to do a life insurance review is very important, and not only is it necessary to really properly plan for your client, but at the end of the day, it is going to create more opportunities for you to sell additional products and find other areas where coverage may or may not be needed, not just for the applicant, but potentially maybe for the spouse or other family members as well. So fact finders are very important. It's something I recommend you go over with all of your clients, regardless of the case size. But these are things we'll help assist you with, get these done, and help you complete these with the client, with their financial advisor, with the CPA, whoever else may need to have these reviewed. Another chart we take a look at here is a earnings potential chart. Now, the earnings potential chart, what this is really takes a look then at your client's current income and a projection then as to what their potential earnings are down the road. Now, this is very important in that a lot of times when you sit down with clients who maybe haven't done a thorough financial review as to how much insurance they need per their income, assume that they probably have enough insurance. Well, one thing this does is put a frame of reference or give them a perspective as to what really their earnings potential is. And with the chart here diagrams a 5% annual salary increase every year through age 65, assuming retirement age at 65. Of course, in today's world, that may or may not be relevant, but it's still a marker. It's still a reference point. So if we take a look at a 40-year-old who's earning $200,000 in income, his potential earnings or earnings potential to age 65 would be $9.5 million. So if he's discussing with you needing insurance to replace income for his family if he were to pass away prematurely, you're taking a look and saying, hey, that you have an earnings potential of $9.5 million. Does that mean he needs $9.5 million of insurance? Well, of course it doesn't, but it certainly means he needs more than $500,000 or probably the million that he has and he felt like was quite a bit. You see that quite a bit. Somebody in that income bracket may have $1 million, maybe $1.5 million, and if they think they have that quite a bit, when you put some of these numbers in front of them, give a easily understandable presentation or chart, or you can reference these numbers, it gives them that perspective that, hey, maybe I'm not as insured as I think, and maybe I do need to consider not just replacing policies, but adding policies. Another model I want to show you here is for an estate growth protection model. This works very well for businesses as well. But this has been a case we worked on where we took a look at the current estate size, and based off current federal estate tax laws and the exemptions, the client and the CPA in the case had mentioned, well, there's really not an outstanding insurance need for the estate. We have a couple $1 million of insurance, and that'll account for any estate liability. Well, in a prior conversation, the CPA had mentioned to us that the client had seen estate growth of about 5%. So we'd taken that and said, well, hey, you'd mentioned to us before you had an estate growth of 5%. Well, your client's age is 66, and taking a look at what his life expectancy is, hey, at that point in time, this estate's growing, and we need to consider that. So we put together this chart, just a simple, compounded growth rate chart to project what that estate size would be. So again, not rocket science here, but just giving you assistance, trying to identify areas where maybe the advisors, the CPAs, are overlooking the insurance needs. Now, they're professionals and they may be very good at what they do, but they're not necessarily insurance first. We are, as you should be, and these are a lot of gaps that you find out there. And in this case, we ended up pointing out to the CPA, hey, at that growth rate, based off what you told me, obviously things may change. He may begin to draw upon that post-retirement, but that's $35 million. And that really put it into perspective, and the CPA ended up coming back and kind of nudging the client and said, hey, yeah, you know what, they're probably right. I hadn't really ran the numbers and projected on it. I don't think your estate's going to be $35 million, but we are going to see some growth there. And at your age, it would make sense to price back in and get locked in on additional insurance. Another form we'll take a look at here then is also a client insurance review. What we do on these is try to summarize in-force illustrations. So I'm sure you've ran those before. Those can sometimes come out to be maybe 30, 40, pages a pop, depending on what you're running and the alternative premium scenarios you're taking a look at by the time you've taken a look at 2 or 3 or 4 different policies. What we try to do here is condense these so they're presentable, that you can understand them, more importantly, that the client and any other advisor at the table can understand them. So what we've done here is just put these into a Word doc. We have our logo on here, and the coloring and everything you've seen here is branded to our logo colors, but we will also do that with any of your agent or agency logos. So keep that in mind. We can customize these presentations. What we're taking a look at here in this case is just a brief review, giving the client what their death benefit is, what the current cash value is, what their current premium is, and the projections on that. We've cut and paste in this scenario here the ledger from the in-force illustration versus trying to hand off 10, 11 pages for this particular product. we've cut and pasted that basic illustration so they can see how much premiums they paid, what their account values are looking like, etc. Taking a review at another policy, and they've done the same thing, basic death benefit, what is their cash value, what are their current premiums, what are their projected lengths of coverage, and then have illustrated those projected lengths of coverage. Now, we're all familiar with illustrations, in-force and/or proposals, and there's a lot of good information in there, but there's a lot of unnecessary information. And oftentimes, if you try to present with those, what you end up with is a can of worms, and you're sending the client and or somebody else that's involved in the case, quite literally maybe 30, 40, 50 pages for them to review and make your presentation off of. Particularly in the early stages when a lot of this is getting done via emails and phone calls and conference calls, the more condensed you can make these, the more streamlined you can make your presentations, it really go a long way with everybody at the table understanding what you're presenting and why you're presenting it. What we also do on all these, and you'll see these on a few different other summaries, is we always try to make recommendations then for you as we review these so you can present these to the advisor. As you see on this one here, the recommendation on the Commonwealth policy in this case is to keep the policy as a matter of fact. The COIs on it look to be pretty good. There's no cash value. There's not 1035 opportunity. So we're not necessarily going in here with the perspective that we need to replace everything your client's got to a premium. No, absolutely not. We're going to take a look at it and coordinate that with you and really try to analyze where there's opportunities for replacement, but ultimately where there's opportunities for your client to improve upon the insurance coverage. If that means replacements, that means replacements. Principal policy, on the other hand, we have some cash value in that one. We can do something. We can facilitate a replacement. A helpful trend, just a quick note so everybody understands it, your client and the advisor. Life insurance rates have gotten better. Life expectancies have gotten longer and longer. What that means is with the current repricing of COIs, if you have additional leverage in a current policy, a great 1035 opportunity will allow you to take advantage of those lower costs of insurance and either get more insurance for the same amount of money or get the same insurance for less money. Things to look for, as we mentioned, maybe obtaining a lower premium with contractual guarantees based off the new COIs. And at this point in time, our recommendation is to complete medical underwriting review in order to present new policy options. So this would be prior to the point where we've really taken a look much in the way of underwriting, just assessing, hey, what do you have? Do we need to take a look at considering other options? If so, next step would be, well, let's take a look at the underwriting. In addition, here's another kind of brief form of what we sent you there. This would not be the illustrations. This would just be a brief overview so that everybody at the table understands what the client has and what that's going to look like in the future here. Again, this is very basic information. We haven't reinvented the wheel here, but what we've done is made a clear one-page presentation branded to our agency colors, which, again, were customizable for any of your personal agencies, and made this presentable that you can send it off to the email to the client, to the advisor, that you can pick up the phone and review this and not going to be leaping through 30, 40, 50 pages of illustrations and policy summaries and statements. It's concise, it looks professional, and it gets the point across. They have $2.75 million of insurance. Total premium is $27,000, $27,600. Their coverage is running from age 60 to age 100. And we've also included a few product notes. Conversion, at what rate class it's convertible to for the term policy here. The universal life policy, what the guarantees are versus the projections. Hey, this is projected around the 95, but you might not have been aware of your guarantee is only to age 70. For very conservative clients and or advisors, that may be a real red flag. And they also have a cash surrender value of $55,000. On their whole life policy, cash surrender value of $80,000. So again, straightforward in the construction of it itself, but getting these done on a professional basis or in a professional format can really go a long way from carrying these cases from, hey, I got a client, to, no, hey, I have a case. And from there, as I'd mentioned before, the next step would be to review then underwriting. So we'll hop back into the presentation here and take a look then at our next slide and touch on a few things in terms of what we do and how we approach the pre-underwriting applications for medical reasons and impaired risk kind of stuff. Now, I'd mentioned it at the beginning of the seminar. This process sometimes comes first. Sometimes it occurs simultaneously to the policy reviews and insurance needs reviews. So just give you an idea to break this in for presentation's sake. Not necessarily that we have a preset format that needs to be done this way for larger cases. That's not the case. But first and foremost, any given case, obviously we're reviewing for basic underwriting guidelines, and this probably goes without saying, but we're confirming bill charts, family history, blood pressure guidelines, cholesterol guidelines, cigar use, other mild impairments that are published and are easily filtered through. In addition to that, when it's called for the more complicated and impaired risk-based underwriting, we'll take a look then at actually trying to pre-screen these in a variety of ways. Now, when we approach that second option is when there's more significant health history and there's going to be a larger disparity from carrier to carrier. And as you work on these kind of cases, you'll find that there can be a huge disparity. You may see one carrier at preferred and another at table 2, table 3. You may see somebody at decline and somebody at standard. So reviewing the basic published guides aren't going to do a lot of favors for a lot of these larger cases where it comes down to medical records and cancer history and most recent checkups and other case details. So at that point in time, we'll approach a few different things. And again, I'll point out here, this isn't a preset formula. It's more giving you an idea as to a lot of the things we're able to do and the way we quarterback these on a case-to-case basis. So we can do a few different things. Typically, at any point in time when there's health information, we're doing in-house assessments where we're taking a look at it and using our expertise and saying, hey, based off what you're telling us, this is how we need to proceed. Based off what you're telling us, we need this health questionnaire, or maybe we ought to try to use quick quoting. Quick quoting on more straightforward cases can be a great way to funnel underwriting answers. In terms of getting the underwriting or tentative underwriting approval you need to suffice for a case. On larger cases or more complicated base health histories, it's also a great way to funnel the herd. Now, we just use this, quite literally, herd all the carriers into an idea of, hey, we're not going to send informals to 20 or 30 different carriers. But can we send quick quotes to 20 or 30 different carriers? Sure. Based off that 20 or 30, we'll take the most aggressive 5 carriers, 10 carriers, whoever that may be, then pick up the phone, then approach some of these other steps in the process, whether that's directly calling the underwriter based off the quick quote to give them more information, to get a feel for how they suggest we proceed, and or proceed accordingly with some of our in-house options. Now, we take a look at one of two things at this point for the more complicated histories. We can either, take a look at doing a true informal, and or we can take a look at getting a write-up by one of our in-house underwriters. At which point in time, if we can get a agency HIPAA, all we need is our agency HIPAA, and or we can get your agency HIPAA and actually obtain the APS. We will go out of pocket to obtain that APS at that point in time on our larger cases. And then we have that summarized by our in-house underwriters. And from there, we can make a really good assessment as to, can we take this directly to the carrier? Based off what we're seeing here, what's the best way to proceed? Well, one of the best ways to proceed at that time might be an informal application, which point in time we'd need the APS. We'll get a general review from the underwriters pre-hand of whether it makes sense to submit an informal. And then we'd also ideally want to see an exam completed when we do informals for these cases. It's not a necessity if the client is really adverse to it. It's not going to make or break whether we proceed or not, but we do recommend at that point in time having exams completed so we can actually submit these informals, get almost darn near secure underwriting offers from the carriers without your client actually having to apply and without your client risking any MIB codes or declines on their insurance application history. So let me show you a few examples here then as to some of the tools we use for the underwriting screening side of things. And on the underwriting screening side of things, I'll show you just a few things here real quickly. This is an example. This is an atrial fib questionnaire. We have a very large library built out for a variety of impaired risk cases, whether it's diabetes, heart attack, stroke history, any form of cancer history, et cetera, where we can go ahead and collect information to either send directly to the carrier and or use for our own assessment and or send to our underwriters to review. So this is just an example of one of the questionnaires that we have done on a case-to-case basis to begin to do a little fact-finding in and of itself on the underwriting side of things. In addition to that, we can also create these. This is a preset format here that you're looking at for a informal application. And we can brand these per your agency logos, per your agency colors, et cetera. But I'll just show you a real brief example of what this looks like. This is what we'd actually need to collect to submit a true informal to the carrier. You're going to have health information, review of doctor information, financial information, and then here is also a HIPAA. So we can pre-create these HIPAA specifically for you and your agency, and or you're always welcome to use our agency HIPAAs. But this base format we can pre-create for you on a case-to-case basis so we can go in and obtain the medical records necessary to get these cases done. And we'll point out again, we will go out of pocket. Our office will go out of pocket to obtain the APSs at this point in time if we feel it's a viable option. And essentially that the case at this point in time looks like it's going to go to the carrier. At the end of the day, the carrier will reimburse us. If we don't end up making it to that point in time, again, we'll stick with the cost on that and are willing to do so on these larger cases. Want to also show you real briefly an example of our underwriting write-up. So I mentioned when we send it to one of our in-house underwriters, who is a professional outside consultant underwriter who can actually review a full APS and condense this down per request, either into maybe a paragraph or two or a couple pages that we can take to the underwriter for review. Now you take a look here. This obviously isn't something I would have written, isn't something you would have written. This is done by a professional underwriter who knows the underwriting needs and medical talk and can point out in an APS what issues we have and what really needs to be screened for the life insurance. Now, we can use this as a tool in of itself or take this directly to the carrier. This information is going to be more information than you would typically see on the quick quote. So a lot of times what we'll do at this point in time is either, whether we combine this with an informal and or call the insurance carrier, given the dynamics of the case, let them know, hey, we're looking at maybe $50,000 in premium on this. The client doesn't want to do in true informal yet at this point, but what we have is a one-page write-up. Do you mind if we just email that over directly to you and you can review it and then let us know what you think? And the answer is always yes. It's outside your guidelines, but if you give them something presentable about this, they know about the case, they understand the premium amounts, this can be a very good way to start knocking carriers off that checklist. We funneled them with a quick quote. We were down to maybe 5 to 10 carriers. We send them this information. Now we're down to 2, 3 carriers that we can actually do an informal with or actually apply with. Underwriting summaries, this is something else, another resource and presentation we will put together for you for your sake and or clients or advisor's sake, depending on how much information you want to be sharing. This is a sample of the presentation we'll give to you after underwriting has been completed. We will give you a medical summary and the way we screen that, whether this was quick quoting, via an informal, via underwriting conversations, etc. Basic information as to what the client's date of birth is, occupation, what their health issues might be, and how we think we need to proceed. So what we will give you as we funnel these carriers down then is provide you with a presentation that you can understand these are the carriers we looked at, this is how they're rating the case, and ultimately the next step would be what our recommendations are. So we'll give you a brief summary of what their health history is, what the ratings might be. For this example, we're looking at American General, who could potentially do a Table 2 to Table 3. We have a potential standard with the Table Shave program, but the underwriter said they want to see an updated cardiac visit. That may or may not break the case. Your client may say, hey, I don't want to do that. If they're willing to, looks like we can get a standard with American General. John Hancock, probable standard, most clear-cut of all offers from all of our carriers, and the underwriting requirements are paramed, blood urine, and arrest and EKG. Well, what we'll also provide for you at that time is a product pricing summary, so you understand not just per underwriting and rate class, but what that actually shakes out to, what the rates look like with the particular carriers, and what products are available, and then make recommendations. In this case, we're saying we recommend American General and John Hancock, and we're making a recommendation as to how to apply. At this point in time, based on what we've seen, we're saying, hey, let's just apply. We can go ahead and get this done with the carrier. We don't need to do an informal, but we're also suggesting so you and your client can make the decision and or any advisors that are involved that an informal would be a safe bet as well if your client would like to do so. Now let's hop back in here again and pop back into the presentation. So that gives you an idea of some of the pre-screening, fact-finding, and underwriting we would do. It'd be prior to the application. The next step then is we essentially at this point in time, whether, whatever road we travel to get to this point, we're taking a look and saying, we have a pretty good idea where we're at. The rates we thought we needed, we think we can get our standards, or we can get our preferreds, or we have a Table 4 and that's what we needed. And at that point in time, we're going to review the offers with the preferred carriers, put together custom illustration comparisons, put together internal rate of return projections, and put you back out in the field so you can make this presentation to secure applications at that point in time or proceed with informals, whatever the best course of action may be. So let me show you a few more of those as well to get you an idea of some of the things we'll put together for you and send you out into the field in. So this here is a kind of quote an option proposal, really basic. We're just looking at a basic chart here into a Word document. It's one page. We're considering a lot of different options here. We're considering 8 different options here, but they're all on one page. Real simple. You can see what the face amount is, what the carrier is, what the rate class would be, what the premiums are, and what the projected length of coverage is. What we're taking a look at in this scenario would be 2 conversion products, being that the client already has Transamerica, or the ability to do a lifetime term, quote-unquote lifetime term. This is a UL. The client wasn't huge on using the term universal life and really just wanted something that would be permanent term insurance. So we turned around and said, okay, we can do that for you. It's lifetime term, as well as 15-year and 10-year term. And we're showing you rates at standard, you'll notice, and preferred. In this scenario, we're taking a look at having a standard, actually, per everything that's been in underwriting, but based off discussions with marketing and head underwriters, they've conceded, yeah, you know what, give us this case. We like the premium. We're taking a look at potentially premiums as high as $128,000 in annual premium. If we need to get the case to preferred, we can send it on in. So we have a tentative standard with a business decision to get us up to preferred. Not sure we're going to be able to secure that. We still have to see how things shake out. So we're letting the client know, hey, you have a standard offer, potentially preferred. If they're comfortable with these scenarios, then we would proceed. 1 page, you can send this to the client via email. You can send it to the advisor. You can sit down in a meeting and clearly illustrate what you're suggesting, what legwork you've done, and what options you want to do moving forward. In addition to that, we also have put together internal rate of return comparisons. Now, these are great for anybody who's, let's say, taking a look at pricing and insurance for the last time, whether they're in their 50s, 60s, 70s, really taking a look at a permanent death benefit product. It's a great way to get them to understand why to do the insurance, why to shell out the money for the higher premium. What we've done here is compare 2 products, United of Omaha and John Hancock, compared a guaranteed product versus a cash benefit product, and have done internal rate of returns at life expectancy. This is an SUL. We've highlighted here at what point in time the life expectancies are based off age and health and sex of each applicant, and what those internal rate of returns will be. Now, so we've been able to extrapolate this from the full illustrations. So what we've done is we took probably thousands of data points, and maybe between the 2 SUL illustrations, 50+ pages of paperwork and documentation into 2 pages, and really cut down the meat and potatoes, and it giving you something that's professional, concise, and understandable. You can take back out to the field, you can take to your client, you can take to their advisors, and make a concise presentation that is actually going to be accepted not just by your client, but also the other advisors at the table who may or may not be on board it yet at this point. I'm sure we've all come across it. It almost comes into a macho thing sometimes where the other advisors are inclined to not approve your suggestions for whatever rich reason. Another example of things we can do for you are flow charts. Now, these were great to illustrate, really bring to life the scenarios you're suggesting. On a lot of these higher case designs, there may be a few steps along the way for the case to really make sense. Funneling money through the business, through a trust. We're dealing with ILETs, and we're not always dealing with clients, despite how financially savvy they may be in their own investment portfolios or in their own business, may not necessarily understand these investment concepts or life insurance concepts, nor may the advisor. And while you're speaking with them and trying to make these presentations, a lot of times the dots just aren't connecting. Having these presentations to help everybody at the table visualize these can really make or break the deal as to whether it's accepted or not. It goes same thing with anything else you've ever heard in sales. If the client doesn't understand it, they're not as likely to buy it. Make sure everybody at the table understands it. We will put together these presentations. It is not coincidence here that the colors coordinate with our logo. These are custom branded. We will custom brand these for your presentations as well as needed, and give you a very professional looking, concise, understandable presentation here. And you'll notice the theme of really what we try to do is streamline. Get these things streamlined. Of course, at the end of the day, you're going to have to get illustrations signed. You're still going to have to bring that 40 pages of paperwork, but you don't need to present off it. So hopping back into the presentation here, next step along the process there then is actually case management and actually the application submission. So at this point in time is when we are submitting cover letters, printing copies of underwriting offers we've gotten, whether informals or quick quotes, any email conversations, documenting who we've spoken to in underwriting, who we've spoken to in marketing about these cases, and we get them flagged in our system for large case handling, which means our VP of new business personally oversees every one of these apps in the underwriting process. We're going to keep that open line of communication with our marketing managers, with our underwriting managers. And at this point in time, I also want to point out how important that is, not just in and of itself that a phone call was made and that the horn was tooted, that the app was coming, but more importantly, the approach we take to these cases is really a roundtable approach. And what I mean by that is it's not our side of the table. It's not us, the client, and you on our side of the table and the carrier on the other side of the table, and we're going to sit down and try to fight it out. That is not the right way to approach these cases. Sometimes it's very easy to do so, particularly when you're dealing with underwriting approvals and you feel like, hey, it's us against them. Like, let's beat the carrier. Let's snag that standard out of them. That's not the way to approach these cases. Really what we've done is try to create a team environment with our carriers while we're working with them on the larger case design cases for a couple reasons. One, it's beneficial to us, but two, you got to realize the carrier's got a lot of stake on these as well. When you're dealing with the marketing managers and you're talking about doing $100,000 in a single case, $50,000 in a single case, yeah, they're going to pay attention to it. That's going to show good on their reports. They want that business. So do the underwriting teams. Everybody in the company wants that business. So if you can make them feel that they're part of the team, and we do so not only by treating them as such, but also just incorporating and embedding details about the client. We'll make sure when we have larger cases that our underwriter knows what our applicant does, what his hobbies are, where his son's going to school. If his son's at Brown and he's trying to apply for Harvard Law School, our underwriter is going to know about it. If the applicant likes going to Paris every summer, our underwriter is going to know about it. We'll paint a picture. They feel like they know the client. It's not just an application in black and white, and they feel that they're part of the team working with IMS and working with our advisors to get these deals done, and that makes a huge difference. In addition to that, another point I'll make is our case managers who actually personally handle the case management and will be sending you statuses are paid bonuses for premiums paid. So they're highly motivated to apply a little extra TLC for these larger cases. As that process evolves, and we can always give you reviews of presentations for updates as needed, whether the attorney's checking in and wanting to say, hey, where are we at? Can you give me a refresher? Based off some of the tentatives you got back, can I see new numbers, et cetera? A lot of times there's going to be a lot of high maintenance people involved. We'll be there to assist you with any of that, whether that's presentations, conference calls, et cetera. And also just to make a point, hey, us just like you, we like big cases. The carriers like them, we like them, you like them. We're going to do what we can at this point in time to really make sure we're getting the offers we need. Well, touching on that, once we get our offers back, we will take a look at negotiating and comparing carrier offers. We'll take a look at illustration, rehashing any illustration comparisons, projections for cash value, internal rate of returns, and then again trying to identify any cross-sell opportunities, referral opportunities, et cetera, with any of the advisors and or clients we've been working with. Real briefly, just take a look at a couple examples here. A lot of times these presentations that we're sending on the back end of it are the very same ones we sent them the first time, just retweaking. As you take a look here at this chart, we've eliminated a few options per the approvals. The conversion options on this case are obviously still viable, but here are a couple more options. And as you can see, based off the underwriting approvals we've gotten now from these carriers, it is better than where they're at on conversion. Let them know, hey, you can still convert if you'd like at that $139,000, and or you can do the new policy for $99,000. Same format as what we got before. We have these on file. We can easily adapt these. And two, it also then, you're presenting something to your client that they've already seen. They've already digested. They've already understood. Now they're just seeing the new numbers. Again, a new death benefit and cash value, internal rate of comparison, same form as what we looked at. We can readjust these and easily tweak these on the back end, so then you can go out and actually place the policy. And at that point in time, ideally, everything's wrapped up. We're good to go. You place the case, and we keep moving. Well, aside from that, so that was really our process bit by bit that I wanted to run through with you guys to give you an idea of the resources, time, and energy we're willing to spend on these cases and some of the things we do. Also want to highlight some of the resources we've accumulated and have access to that make these cases easier, not just for us, but for you. And we take a look at a lot of different things on that front. I just want to show you a few samples of what that looks like so you can get an idea of some of the tools that we're referencing on a regular basis. Informal guidelines. On a case-to-case basis, I'd mentioned we need to decide whether we're doing true informals. Well, these are samples here. We're not given the secret sauce just yet, but these notes here are actually taken from real carriers. Term insurance. Well, this carrier, for example, will take an informal if the case is over $5 million in face and or $1 million in term. Whether there's any age limitations on that, this carrier is taking a look at $2 million versus $500,000. Depending on where we're coming out with quick quoting and underwriting conversation, this can really be a difference as to how we want to try to proceed. We may not be able to submit informals with all the carriers we want to, so we may have to use one or two as a reference point, and then from there decide how we want to apply. It really make a difference as to whether we do true applications or not, We chart this, and we'll bring you aware that, you will be aware of this as these cases come up and as we get to this point. We also take a look at retention limits. This is important to some agents as to whether they're concerned with the policy, going to reinsurance or not. Sometimes that's a big deal to somebody. Sometimes it's not. On the back end of it, in terms of underwriting approvals, that can be a very big deal. For example, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, if we, let's say, have a tentative standard from John Hancock, and we're really pushing for a standard plus, and we need the standard plus to do the deal, it's replacement, we've ran the numbers, so we call back to the carrier and say, is there any chance, it's $100,000 in premium, we really want to get this case done. What they might say at that point is, hey, there's not internally, but we can send it to reinsurance. Well, the downside of sending it to reinsurance is it's risky. If the reinsurer comes back and underwrites it for Table A or Table B, that standard offer is off the table. If they come back at Standard Plus, great, we got the Standard Plus, but that's something you need to be aware of as well. The reinsurer, they have more advanced underwriting modules, and their word is final. So they come back and do a Table 2. Even though John Hancock had the week before told us we had a tentative standard, we no longer do. What those retention limits are on a case-to-case basis, when does that go to reinsurance, all those things can come into play. Another thing we take a look at then are the application financial questions, depending on how sensitive your client is to that. At what point in time are they asking for additional questionnaires? When are they asking for third-party financials? At what face amounts? When do they need tax returns? Per the application, are they asking about life settlements? Are they asking about premium finance cases, prior or future? That can be a big deal. On all these higher net worth clients, they've maybe been involved in premium finance or life settlement in the past, or potentially maybe you're taking a look at doing something in the future. Another niche we've been exploring over the past year or two and been slowly doing more and more business on is team coverage. Team coverage is really working with professional athletes and the ball clubs. We document information on that as to what the minimum death benefits are, which carriers will actually take that business, what minimum contracts they need to see between the player and the organization before they will consider writing that business. You're typically going to see 4 to 5 years, maybe a minimum of 3 years, the idea being that the insurance carriers don't want to write the business if they know it's getting replaced in 3 years. 4 or 5 years, hey, they feel they can make a few dollars out of it and it's worthwhile. In addition to that, I know I'd mentioned to you briefly, the premium finance and life settlement portion of it, of the application. These are two very big areas of high compensation. These topics in and of themselves are full webinars or seminars, but just want to point out to you, we are doing this. It is something to keep in mind as you come across it. Don't be afraid to mention this to your clients. Don't be afraid to discuss this. We are very well versed and can give you support on this. The life settlement basic parameters, just give you a quick 101. We're looking for policies $500,000 or larger in existing face amount, a client of at least the age of 65, and a 4-table decrease in health, at least 4 tables, so that could potentially be preferred plus to standard, or a standard offer to a Table 4 offer, so that there's a significant amount of premium arbitrage available in that policy for the investor. Premium finance basics, you're approaching this with clients high net worth of $10 million or more. They need to have sufficient assets to pledge as collateral for premium, and they still need to be both medically and financially insurable. But when you're coming across clients with that kind of net worth, at any point in time might be a good time to give us a call and say, hey, does premium finance work in this case? What do you think? We'll review it, get into more details on a case-to-case basis as to whether that makes sense or not. It can be some very good areas for very, very high compensation in addition to any base life deals that are getting done on top of that. So that is a wrap. I just wanted to give everybody an idea as to a lot of the different resources we're doing here, a lot of different things we're seeing. Maybe give you a little bit of heads up as to what the best way is to approach a lot of these different cases, as well as, like I said, giving ideas to what we can do for you. So the next time you have a case, you're not afraid to approach an advisor or financial advisor and/or attorney or client who maybe has other advisors and is high net worth. You know we're there, we're in your corner, we have the resources, and we can really handhold you on these larger cases to make sure we're able to get it done. So if you have any questions, I am going to open the floor here now to questions and answers. If you need to hop off, you can always email me at sean@imsfree.net and or give me a call at 800-914-9483. I'm at extension 7342. So thank you all for hopping on. I hope we picked up a few things and hope to talk to you soon.
Hello.
Okay, so everybody is unmuted now at this point.
Can you repeat your email, please?
Yes, that is Sean, S-E-A-N,
Okay.
at imsforyou.net.
Thanks. And the
Yep.
phone again is 800-914.
914-9483. And I'm at
I got
extension
your-
7342.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sean. Enjoyed your presentation.
Great. Yeah, thanks for hopping on.
Hello, Sean.
Yes.
Hi, this is Leo. I typed in a question, and I'm not sure if you are hearing it.
Yeah, okay, so life insurance prospects outside that are non-U.S. residents?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that you take a look at on a case-to-case basis, but certainly. A couple of guidelines you may want to take a look at are ties to the U.S.,
Okay.
and whether that's a permanent residence, business ties, immediate family, bank accounts, real estate, etc. A lot of times you really just got to paint a picture for the carrier. They have specific guidelines they look at, but really more what they have is maybe a checklist of different items they look for, and the more you can accumulate and check off, the more likely they are to actually be able to take the business. So it just varies on a case-to-case basis. If you have specific cases, be more than happy to review those with you after the call and run through it and see if we can find a carrier or find a home for you. Rule of thumb on those is there are a few carriers that are more hungry for that business. Right now, the standout in that market is actually Transamerica. They really are probably head and shoulders above most carriers in terms of taking non-resident business.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Thank you, Sean.
No, thanks, Leo. Any other questions, guys? Remember, any question's better than no question. If you got a question, a half question in the back of your mind that might be worth asking, good chance there's somebody else online who maybe had the same half question. So throw it out there. Please don't be afraid, or if not, you can always email or call us after the fact, and more than happy to review anything with you at that point in time as well. So keep the line open here for another minute or so, and at which point in time I'll probably close out and get you on your way. Okay. I want to thank everybody for hopping on. Any additional questions, please feel free to contact us here at the office.